Hi, everybody. Michelle DeAmber here, self-care coach. I thought I'd pop on and talk about other aspects of healing that are outside of nutrition and supplements and rest. And that is doing inner work, self-development, and letting go of emotional trauma. So I'm going to go through some books that I've read that I feel have been very beneficial on my journey. There's some that, from a long time ago that I've read, but I would say starting from 2014 on, these have been the books that helped me. So the first one is this, Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender by Dr. David R. Hawkins. This is not an easy book to read. None of his books are. He's very intellectual. So, and because he goes through such deep stuff, it's like it took me, I think, 4 or 5 months to get through it because as I was going through the levels of consciousness, like at the very bottom is shame, and he goes through a chapter on each of the different levels of consciousness. I felt like I was working through each of those. So I would take a break in between. And um, he learned the letting go technique from the Sedona method. And it was, at first, it was hard for me to um, do it. And then finally, I put the book down. And I think I was not feeling well. I had some kind of bronchitis, which is, chest is grief. And I sat down on the floor at the end of my bed and I just started like sitting with myself. I had just finished the book. And through this meditation that I was doing, I came to the awareness that my thinking was the source of all my pain. Like it like really hit me that our thoughts are what really control us and that my thinking needed to be changed. So I ended up, when I had that awareness, I was like bawling out of nowhere. And as I was doing that, all of a sudden, all this stuff that was stuck in my chest, like it wasn't coming out, it all broke up. It like in the middle of this thing that I was having, this experience, it broke up and it was all like coming out. And then I went from like not being able to walk around the corner. This is when I was probably at my sickest. I couldn't even walk around the corner. And I had been very athletic prior to that. And then after this, within a week, I was on a 2.5 mile hike. So all of that stuff that I had that was in my chest and it wouldn't loosen up and let go. This awakening, this, thing that I went through released a lot of that. And once I realized that my thinking was the source of all my problems, it really made a huge difference for me. It was probably one of the most significant moments in my life where I came to a deep realization. So I ended up, and ironically, I had been single for a while and I got on a dating website. I forget which one I was on, maybe it was Match. And I was communicating with this guy, and he asked me how much time I spent by myself in silence. And at the time, I was running around a lot. And I was like, well, I guess I don't really actually sit in silence often. I didn't get into meditating then. And he recommended Power versus Force. And then I saw both of them and I got both, but then I was, my intuition told me to read this. So that's that. Interesting that some guy I was talking to off a dating website led me to these books. It was definitely, God speaking through somebody else. I never even met the guy. He was in a weird transition. So was I. And it was probably obvious for both of us to not be dating at that time. So there are other, he has a ton of other books. Dr. Hawkins passed away in 2012, and that's about when my awakening started in a past relationship that I was leaving. I was with an alcoholic for 6 years, and it was just, it was just a tough relationship. Anyway, I broke away from that in 2012. And so that kind of started me on this path. And then 2012, 2013, 2014, I physically fell apart after that relationship from the years of stress and myself, not just this person, because I believe that if we're with somebody who's unhealthy, then there's aspects of ourself that we need to look at that are unhealthy as well. So it's not one sided. Anyway, so there's a lot of other books. They have the same teaching throughout all of them, but I love Dr. David R. Hawkins and his work. So I have all his books. And then part of like the healing journey, there's, I mentioned in one of my videos that, the body stores trauma. And I don't have Body Keep the Score, but I had that book. Maybe it was not a hardcover. I like hardcovers. Um, this was probably one of the first books I got in 2007 when I had a lot of health problems. And then these are kind of like, um, I got this in like 2013 and started doing a bunch of cleanses. That's how I got into kidney cleansing, liver, gallbladder cleansing, parasites. This is really good. And then another book that I commented on a comment on my video. This book is interesting. I don't know how I came across it, but it's like this woman just got these messages about all these different um, physical ailments and what it means emotionally. And so, like, usually if I'm talking to a client or somebody and they have this nagging thing, I'll look up what it is because it can give me some insight to maybe what's going on emotionally. And I'll do the same thing with me, if I'm having a particular thing, like my shoulder's been bothering me. So I know I have the weight on my shoulders. So it's an interesting book, but it will also, like when it talks about, like arthritis, and then she does like this little prayer thing, like a positive affirmation to read, to kind of counter that and to let go of that emotion. So this is interesting. This is kind of like a resource guide to me, not like a book that you would read. And then I love Dr. Joe Dispenza. I came across him um, probably when I was living in Arizona, maybe. I don't know. I've binge watched everything. I think I was streaming Gaia TV and I started seeing a bunch of interviews that he was in and some of his lectures. And that's how I learned about Dr. Joe Dispenza. And so this is, I mean, breaking the habit of being yourself. This is so amazing. And it's true. We can go decades just holding on to certain thoughts, beliefs, trauma, stories, and then it becomes our personality. And we literally will seek out things to validate and to reinforce that personality and that story. So this is his work is amazing. Then when I was going through my most recent breakup, my marriage, I started getting into, um, I got this book, Nonviolent Communication. When you grow up in a household that there was no healthy communication, you think that certain ways of communicating is normal. And silent treatment is not normal. Ignoring people is not normal. Calling them names is not normal. But, I tend to, when you grow up in that environment and all your relationships have been that way, and then you even look outside of that and you see other people that their husband's ignoring them for a week or two, you think, oh, this must be normal. So I'm just going to trade one guy in for another guy and they're all the same. I don't believe that anymore. That's not my story. That's okay if other people are, that's okay. We all have our journey. I've stayed in relationships longer than I should have. And we all have to go through what we need to go through, but I will not tolerate that ever again. So this was an interesting book. The only thing is it's hard to apply these things if you're the only one trying to apply it. It would be nice if your significant other would apply these things. And then I got more into, okay, what is my attachment style? So this is good. Um, I found out I have more of a mixed attachment style. So I can be anxious, especially when I'm with somebody who is avoidant, or I've had a couple relationships, an ex-husband, a first one, and then the ex-boyfriend that I talked about that I broke up in 2012, they were both alcoholics. So I had an anxious attachment style with them because there was always like, where are they? When do they come back? Like I was very anxious in those relationships. And then I notice when I'm around people who have, and this can be all relationships. So if I'm in a healthy environment, everything's healthy. I have to work on why I respond. I've gotten way better at this the past year because I'm more aware of it and trying to keep my own energy and self and take a moment to respond to things. And it's really helped at work. Like there's been times where I wanted to respond to an email or I felt like I wasn't treated fairly. But what I do is I just walk away and then I go take a break and I sit with it and I think through, what part of this and why am I being triggered? Is there a part that I do need to stand up for myself? And if I do, what's the best way to go about it? So I've been learning that a lot this past year. And knowing your attachment style, I think helps a lot. There's like a little quiz in here. So I tend to be mixed. So if I found somebody with a healthy attachment style, then more than likely I'm going to be more healthy. But if they're avoidant, then I'm anxious. If they're anxious, then I'm avoidant. I noticed that in all my relationships. So this was a cool book. And then before I went into therapy, um, I got this book because, you know, I'm an adult child of an alcoholic. I didn't finish this one yet, but I started getting those books. And then my father passed away. Part of the work, like I mentioned, that experience that I had after reading the Letting Go book and that emotional release and how that really helped me with my health. Each time that I made like changes or something significant in my life. So when I split with my ex-husband and bought this house, I went through a major shift and my hair patterns changed from calcium shell to like mixed oxidation. My calcium came into a great range, my magnesium in a great range, the best hair test that I'd seen in 7 years. So making that change in my personal life completely showed in my hair test. So that's why I think some people, their hair patterns don't change because they're in situations, whether it be relationship, work, maybe you're a caretaker, or maybe you're you've got a child that's causing problems, because there's a personality dynamic, and it will shift our patterns and things about us to adapt and to be able to get through difficult times. So if you're trying to achieve being healthier and getting rid of some, you know, ongoing health problems, and shifting that, the diet and the supplements aren't going to work so much if you're not making changes in your life. So if you're seeing that there's a things are not changing for a long time, then I would encourage you to kind of look at other things in your life that maybe you're kind of putting aside and saying, I'm not ready to deal with that. I know it's a problem. Like when I was in the relationship before with the alcoholic, his mom had come to visit us in Las Vegas, and he got drunk, and she started to mention something about his cholesterol. And then I kind of chimed in a little bit, and then he got super defensive and started being mean to his mother. And so we got up, she went into the kitchen and she was crying. And so I went in after her and was like, I'm sorry, whatever. And she's like, Michelle, you're such a wonderful person and you're into all this health stuff, but yet your relationship is unhealthy with my son. She said, I love my son and I love you too. And this relationship is not good for you. And that was very eye-opening. So, having being healthy in one area, but then unhealthy in another area isn't going to work. Like if you're eating healthy, but then you're binge drinking on the weekends, you're sabotaging yourself. Or if you're smoking cigarettes, or have some other really bad habit, there's only so much you could do to counteract that bad habit, because there's a polarity. You're not living in alignment when you're doing something so out of alignment. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, so I had to work through a lot of that stuff, and I went into a relationship probably before I should have. You think you heal, but then in order for us to see things that we still need to work on, we have to actually be in a relationship. Because, hey, things great by myself. Nobody's triggering me at home. I'm by myself. Life is wonderful. And then we get in a relationship, and all of a sudden, they're behaving like a parent that we had problems with, and then we're behaving like their parent that they had problems with, and we end up creating this unhealthy environment to relive our childhood. And instead of working it out, we're just, being triggered and responding and creating this familiar. If anything, if you meet somebody and it feels familiar, that's actually a problem, because if it feels familiar and you grew up in an unhealthy environment, then that person is not good for you. They feel comfortable because you're used to chaos and abuse and things like that. So that, I think that helped me a lot. And even though in many aspects this, person wasn't as bad as the other ones, which shows that I'm growing, there was a lot of things. If that person's not doing any work, has not done any work at all, there's no way that they can, be able to have a healthy relationship if they've not worked on their own stuff as well. So I knew that it wasn't going to work, because I'm not going to be in a situation where I'm constantly trying to do all the work. So when I left, all those shifts happened with my hair test. And then getting to the point, because this is my biological dad came in my life after 25 years and passed away 4 months later in 2020. Then when I moved to Florida, my ex-boyfriend who I'd met in Florida and we were lived in Vegas, he was in Florida and we had a mutual friend. He ended up dying from drinking. That happened. And then I split up from my ex-husband. And then had, my dad passed away February last year. So these men that have played a huge role in my life in a short period had passed away. In fact, interestingly, my first husband from my 20s, I would Google him once in a while because he was very dangerous. So I would just check up on him to see where he was. And something made me Google him a couple months ago, and he died like 2 hours before my birthday in February, car accident, drinking. He was 55, I think. So I've had two exes that were alcoholics die at like 50 and 55. So that all of that, all these men, just I released a lot of things. And after my dad passed away, I just was parasites were coming out of me. It was the craziest thing. I think all that crying because I didn't express my emotions the whole time I was married. Like I would express them, but I didn't really deeply express. And I wasn't in touch with that side of me that was soft and vulnerable and that needed to feel. So when my dad passed away, all of that came out. And I immediately went into a 4 low pattern. And I had been like off the chart calcium, magnesium for all these years. So to see my hair pattern jump down to a 4 low and mixed oxidation, it really showed that this this stuff that we deal with on a deep emotional level makes a huge difference in our health and our well-being. So all of that, like for months, things were coming out of me, you know. I remember when I gained weight, I had some weird pocket, like a weird fat pocket. I had gained so much weight. And I think between menopause and the calcium shell, not being able to feel my emotions, I created this barrier. And I was walking on the beach in Florida. I was exposed to red algae with the Red Sea stuff there, and I was having chest problems. I think I got a lot of parasites there. And I had this weird, like, fat pad near my like panty line. And I was like, ooh, this is weird and gross, because I never really had something like that. And in the middle of me releasing all these parasites, mind you, I'm not doing anything but just letting go and reading books like this. I was in therapy and she recommended this book. So this is really interesting because then you see like in all aspects of your life where maybe you're in situations where there's a situation where your betrayal is being broken. So I had this weird bruise, like I didn't even do anything, and I think it was just breaking up this pad of, maybe it was a clump of parasites. It was just a bruise one day and then it was gone, it went away. So it's then I started pulling out some parasite cleanses because I'm like, man, these things want to go. I'm going to help them exit. And so I started doing some rounds of parasite cleansing this past year to kind of, help them move along. So I feel great now. It's so nice to have all of that out of me. But, I have a dog, and we're going to always have parasites that we're dealing with. So I'm okay. I'm not as paranoid about that. If you're new to um, parasites, cleanses, and stuff like that, it's very gross, trying to wrap your head around the fact that you've got worms in you. But trust me, everybody has worms inside of them. You can deny it, you can roll your eyes, whatever. Trust me, we all have worms. So, especially if animals, you walk barefoot somewhere, you eat fruit, vegetables, you eat out, like you're going to come in contact with the parasite eggs. So if you have like SIBO or any kind of constipation, irritable bowel syndrome, um, any kind of digestion problems, if you've got arthritis, I mean, there's so many things. And, Dr. Hulda Clark, her book is really good because she'll explain a lot of that and how we get the parasites and where they hide and stuff like that. She was like an expert in this. So but we'll hold on to them because our body, on a physical or emotional level, is creating an environment that they like. So they like negativity, they like depression, they cause a lot of it, and anxiety, low self-worth, being in situations. If you look at anybody who goes out and like murders or does something crazy, I bet you $1 million they've got some kind of parasite problem, like really bad. If you watch, there's like a video of this parasite that goes into a praying mantis and like makes it kill itself. That's what parasites do. They will make people commit suicide, murder, attack people. I There's certain foods that I won't eat because I do believe that there's no way that you can get rid of them. Like I will never eat sushi again. I don't eat any pork, bacon, anything like that. In fact, people that eat a lot of bacon usually have some kind of like emotional imbalance if they eat a lot of bacon. I've seen that with people. So I kind of go on these little tangents, but it's a combination of things. It's a combination of, yeah, get your diet and supplements in order, but then what is it in my life that I need to look at? Are there patterns? Are there relationships? Now, in some situations, it's a little harder to get out of them, but I believe that when we're doing the work and we're moving in that path, all the doors start to open. When I first moved to Texas, I was really just a mess. I remember just living in my parents' spare bedroom. I came here with three animals. I was working from home. I'm in this small bedroom with a desk, a twin bed, these three animals on my bed, going through a separation and this environment being with my family again and that triggering me and going through my own thing. In fact, my calcium shell went up to like 500 something. And I created like this barrier to kind of get through that for a couple months until I went and rented a house. And then I went through things there. It's been a journey. The last few years, 4 years, have been very tough. But each time I was making decisions and moving in a direction, the doors started opening, but it was still very difficult. It was very challenging. Um, I changed my career. I decided to go back for my old boss in a different capacity because running my business and juggling clients was kind of a pain. And I wanted health insurance and benefits and things like that. And I do like the men that I work for and the company that I work with. So I said, as long as I could work from home for the rest of my life, I'm okay with it. And I can do this on the side. So that was the deal for me to go back. And I'm not doing full-time accounting, which I was getting burned out. I'm a CEO, so I'm doing more project management. So I really enjoy my life now and I love my house and I've created this nice peaceful environment. So now I'm able to like really reflect and see things more clearly because sometimes when we're in the middle of things, for me, I try to look at the positive and I try to have a good attitude about things. But if I think about my hair patterns and what I was going through, I can see that that was not good for me at all. Whereas now I feel much better. And I was able to get out of those hair patterns and shift into better oxidation. Hmm. So I would, these, like I said, Dr. David R. Hawkins, his books are really tough reads. Um, Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's got tons of YouTube videos. Another thing that I did a few years ago through the separation is I was following this guy, Jake Woodard, and I mentioned him on prior videos before. He talks about masculine, feminine energy, and I did a few of his courses and meditations while I was doing sauna type stuff. And I was able to work through a lot of understanding of why I had a lot of masculine traits and that it was a protection and it was a way of me taking care of myself. And because I had this very hard exterior and independence, and I can take care of myself, I was attracting men that were not secure and grounded in a healthy masculine energy. So, what happens is if I attract somebody, because there's a polarity. So if I'm more masculine, then I'm attracting men that are more feminine. And so that adds to my masculine because now I'm having to be the one that's leading, that's making decisions, so then I'd have a lot of pain and tension in my neck and my shoulders. Any woman who is a businesswoman and she's having to do everything at home and she's having to really take on more because most of the time women are taking on more. They are men want women working, but they're not doing the same, most of them. I know there's some of you out there that are wonderful and you are. So, I don't want to put everybody in the same category, but the majority of men are still having women take on a lot of those traditional roles at home. And so that's a lot for a woman. We weren't really made to be able to take on that kind of stress. We I think we can handle physical stress probably because women, they bear children and stuff like that, but the actual stress of working and taking care of things, that's more of a masculine thing. So if you're out there as a businesswoman having to be in your masculine energy and then you come home and you can't drop into your feminine and just know that your man's taking care of things, then there's just going to be a lot of stress and tension. So that awareness helped me tremendously. And that's why in my personal life now, I do things that are feminine. That's why I have all these plants. I think, getting my hands in the dirt, out in the garden all the time, talking to my plants, that's very feminine energy. And on the weekends, I have a little bit of structure because I like my house cleaned on Saturday morning so that I can relax through the weekend. So I do have a little bit of structure, but I am flexible as well. Like yesterday, instead of cleaning first thing, I went out and did some garden work. I could be a little bit more flexible, and feminine energy is a more flexible, flowy energy. And same thing with my workouts. I'm not structured in my workouts. Like today, I haven't worked out. I might, I don't know. I might fit in like 15 minutes. Big deal. I try not to have during my off work hours to not be so structured because I realize when I look back at other times in my life when I was too structured, like with my workouts and stuff like that, I was carrying a lot more stress because women shouldn't be like that. That's a man thing to have structure. And then there's some women who are way too much in their feminine. I've seen women where they just do not get anything done. They are not productive. Their whole day goes by and they get nothing done. That's because they're too much in their feminine energy. And the same thing can happen with a man, that he's just not getting anything done. So they're being more aware of these things so that we can have more balance and be able to go, oh, I'm going to switch to this energy so that I can get some stuff done, but then I'm also going to relax. So that's kind of the stuff that I've been working on this past year, is being more in touch with my needs and how I respond to people, boundaries. The other day I had a rough day. I didn't sleep at night because there were some loud people out in the field, like from midnight till 2:30 in the morning. And then I was busy all day, and I'm talking to my mom, and she wanted all this, like, boomer IT stuff. Her internet was out, and then I'm helping her get on her internet on her phone, trying to show her how to turn the Wi-Fi off. If you have a boomer parent, you probably know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I love her, but this is, that's part of your job as a Gen X, is to be a boomer IT person. So it was getting the end of the day, and she's like, "Oh, now thanks for getting my internet. I'm going to go to my Bible study. I'll call you later." And I said, "Mom, I don't have any patience left for today. So please, don't call me. Maybe Christina can help you." She's like, "Oh, okay. Thank you." Because I knew that if my mom called me back and I had already spent all my energy that day, I wasn't going to be nice and loving to my mom. So the best thing that I could do was to be honest with her and tell her, I don't have any more patience left. Like, I'm done. There's nothing left. I can't give you any more today. And that's been something that I've been working on the past, I would say, 5 or 6 years, is setting more boundaries with people, because I know that if I don't do that and then I'm reactive, it's really not their fault. It's my fault because I didn't set that boundary. So I believe that, this is a journey. You're not going to get healthy and your life change in like 6 months. This is an ongoing thing. And one day you'll reflect back and go, wow, I made it. I remember when I was 21, I wanted to commit suicide. I did. I was going to a therapist office, and I said, I was driving on the freeway, and I just wanted to just drive off the freeway, my car right into the woods. And she said, "What made you stop?" And I said, I had this thought, what if I'm happy one day and I missed out? So that hope is what helped me get through so much in my life, and constantly looking for answers and sitting with the pain and working through things as much as I can to get to a place where I could just be okay, to be at peace with myself. So I encourage you to just continue exploring. If any of these books or anybody that I've mentioned resonates with you, I would not recommend anything. I'm just sharing what helped me. But being guided, like when that man that I communicated through the dating website mentioned this book, and then I ended up ordering this one. He kind of guided me, and then I let my intuition further that to what was going to work for me. So that's what I would encourage you to do, is if something resonates with you, to move in that direction. And if you have any questions or anything like that, I know I shared a lot of vulnerable personal things, but I did it because I believe that it can be helpful and also encouraging to see that, somebody else has been through different things, and they've made it through. So that's all I have today. Where it's raining today. It looks like it's going to clear up. I actually got ready to go run some errands, and then an unexpected, Texas has had a lot of unexpected storms. I heard the lightning and the thunder, and I was like, well, I wonder if I'm going to get out of the house today. I don't want to waste all this makeup and hair that I did today. So I think I'll come on and do a video. Anyway, I will say goodbye. Thank you, everyone. Let me know if you have any questions. Have a wonderful day.